Hey, everybody, it's Melinda Russell with Women's Motorsports Network and the Racing Girls Rock podcast. And tonight it's Let's Talk Racing Live. This is our social media show that we interact with our fans and allows our guests to answer some questions and things. And so we've been off for a few weeks. I took a few weeks off. Brett and I did with the holidays and that. And so Heather, you're going to be our first guest for 2023. But just a little background here first. I'm actually sitting at my daughter's in Arizona. That's why there's no grass. Everybody on this street has rock for their front yard, so no grass. Low maintenance is all I can say. But I think I do miss the green when I'm here. So I'm out here visiting my two youngest daughters, babysitting, which I love to do, but that's a loose term because my grandkids are 13 and 12 that I'm taking care of. So basically, I get to sit and relax and watch TV, and they pretty much take care of themselves. But I'm enjoying a little bit warmer weather than what it is in Kalamazoo. Um, they're actually having some cool weather here for Arizona, but I'm still got my flip flops on, Heather. So I'm enjoying that for sure. But we wanted to get started tonight. Our guest is Heather the Heat Hanley. They call her Heather the Heat, and I want to know more about that, Heather, how you got that name. But just to get started, I want to say welcome to the show. And why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I am excited to be here and glad to be the first guest of 2023.
Yeah.
I am honored. But yeah, so I am 21 years old. I'm originally from California, but I'm currently living in North Carolina and attending the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, where I am double majoring in finance and accounting. And I'm a junior, almost done, so I'll have like about a year left. Um, I've been racing for about 11 years, um, and did a lot of legend car racing, but recently made the decision to race in MX5 Cup this year. So been preparing a lot for that this past year, and really excited for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for you too. I followed you for quite some time, not 11 years. I didn't know you back when you started, but so tell me, how did you get started in racing? What was the first thing that you learned to drive?
Yeah, I started indoor go-karting just locally. Racing does not run in my family at all.
Okay.
But we started just for fun. It was sort of a traditional thing between me and my dad to just try out different sports. And so I had tried a bunch of different sports, and just racing was, I guess, among them when I was 9. And I found that I really enjoyed it, and we started going back every week. And then after about 6 months of doing that, I had won 104 out of my 107 races there. So we're like, okay, maybe we should actually consider taking this to the next level. And so I started racing go-karts, and I did that for about 5 years. I raced 2 different types of go-karts most of the time that I raced go-karts. So I would do jump back and forth between a two-stroke and a four-stroke engine, and yeah, that's pretty much how I started.
Wow, 104 wins out of 107. So that's like 99 point something percent, which is unheard of for anyone in racing. I can tell you that. I don't care what your age is. So probably a little bit spoiled as far as being used to winning and then having to move up. It probably was a little more of a challenge, but you needed the challenge, didn't you?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Most of the people that try indoor go-karting are just doing it for fun, like we were at the beginning. But yeah, it changes a bit when you start, taking it a little bit more to the professional level, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So, what's your favorite thing about being a race car driver?
Well, I guess my favorite thing about the sport is that I realized this actually when I was really young, when I had first tried out racing, is that you're kind of just alone by yourself in the car. And like you might have a radio, you might have some form of communication with officials or whoever, but you're still for the most part alone with yourself. And I think that that surprisingly is my favorite part. I have a lot of favorite things about racing, but I think it just, that aspect was what allowed me to really thrive in the sport, because before that, when I was in either like gymnastics or softball or whatever else sport I was playing, I found that when I was taking input from different voices and people yelling at me, it was really messing with my thoughts. And yeah, racing was different in the fact that I could just rely on my instincts and just be with myself. So yeah, that's my favorite part of racing.
That's probably the first time I've heard someone say that, but I love that answer because I get what you're saying. My granddaughter played softball, my all my grandkids play sports, my kids all played sports. And when you've got parents yelling, coaches yelling, other kids, even if it's just that they're cheering, not that they're yelling at you, but they're cheering, it can be very distracting.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I would think it'd be hard to know who to listen to, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Should I listen to my dad? He's yelling to choke up. Should I listen to my coach? He's telling me to run faster, whatever it might be. And
Hmm.
so the quiet, if you will, even though, yes, a car or go kart, whatever, is noisy, um, it's still the quiet because it's just you in there.
Hmm.
And I can understand that that would be calming, and it gives you a way to focus on what you're doing. And so I love that answer, Heather. That's awesome. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge in being a driver?
So many things.
Well, it can be more than
um
one.
hmm I mean, I think that this also, relates to different aspects of my life, like in school, um, or just, I guess moving across the country. But the biggest challenge in racing is probably just having to continuously challenge yourself and grow and learn, and just facing a new obstacle every single time you're at the track, because you're nothing is predictable in racing,
Hmm.
and that's why I think that it's really difficult, because every time you show up to the
Yeah.
track, you never know where you're going to start. You never know, what the lineup is going to be like, or how the race is going to turn out, or what kind of potential mechanical issues you might run into.
Hmm.
These types of things are very difficult for racers to deal with because they're not predictable, like I said. So
Right.
you focus on the things that you can control. Like you can practice on the simulator at home and you can do all you can, possibly to get ready. But I think that that's definitely the biggest challenge, is showing up to the track every time and still having so much, just that you're unsure about.
Right. It's the unknown
Yeah.
that you have to be able to deal with really in a second's notice. Um, you're out on the track and somebody's wrecking in front of you. That's not predictable. You haven't practiced that probably on the simulator. And so you have to be prepared and you have to be focused and on the top of your game every time you're out there to be able to react in a way so that you're not involved in the accident as much as you can do. So yes, the unpredictability of, and that's also the excitement of it, isn't it? That
Mhm.
it's not predictable. And so we go to the track, even as a spectator or a fan, and that's what draws us in because it's not predictable. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's of any sport, that's one of the things that draws the fans is because who's going to win the game. Who would have thought the Detroit Lions, I'm from Michigan, and I can't really say I'm a huge Lions fan, but I did want them to beat Green Bay, and who would have thought that they did that. And so yeah, I lost her there, I think. I don't know what happened. So Heather, are you still there? I think I lost her somehow. Hopefully she comes back to us here in a minute. We'll watch and see if she, it says she's here, so good old technology. Can't, after what we saw Southwest experience, you know, you just never know what's going to happen. So, gosh, I don't know. There she is. She's back.
My computer died. Sorry about that. I
Okay.
moved to the kitchen now, but
That's okay. I totally understand that. So, no, I was just saying, technology after what Southwest went through, anything's possible. And so, good old technology, we have to just deal with it. But yeah, Heather, that's the unpredictability. Like I was saying, you never would have thought that the Lions were going to beat Green Bay, but that's why we watched, because we didn't know what was going to happen.
yeah.
So I love that part. Um, I usually ask my ladies that I interview, my girls, my women, all ages, um, to be a woman in motorsports. Sometimes you don't get any reaction from the people around you, and sometimes some of the gals have had some issues. What about you? Being a woman in motorsports, have you had anything that has been hard to deal with, or has it been pretty easy?
Yeah, I've had a multitude of things that are hard to deal with. And I think just recently, I guess the best example I can give you is moving up from semi pro to the pro class in legend cars has been very difficult in just being, I guess, the only woman in the pro class, and at least where I have been racing. And, so that's I guess the unfamiliarity is a little scary to some men there, I guess. But yeah, so, I've had to deal recently with people intentionally driving into me and, just putting both of us in danger, really. And it's tough to get put in that position.
Hmm.
But you just, I mean, you show up to the track the next day and you just put it all behind you. Um, but yeah, I know that sometimes it definitely throws curveballs at you being a woman in a male dominated sport. But I've been in racing for so long that I'm familiar with a lot of the typical challenges that, being a woman here faces. But yeah, I guess, you still never know.
No.
What might be around the corner.
Well, and the hard part is, so, you're the only gal there. And, not all men, we got a lot of good men out there that race, but men can be very intimidated by being beat by a girl, especially a young gal like you. You're only 21, and they could be in their 40s, 50s, or older. And so that can be intimidating and maybe even a little embarrassing for some, but they can't look at it that way. They just have to look at it that you're another racer on the
Yeah,
track and not that
exactly.
you're a woman. And so I think we've come a long way in that respect. Even in the last, 4 or 5 years that I've really been more involved, um, we've come a long way, but we still got some men out there that need to understand that we can all be a part of the racing community. We can all get on the track and race against each other, and yet race cleanly and fairly, and not take somebody out. I knew another gal that had some issues this summer, where the guys were constantly wrecking her and pushing her into the wall, and you know some of the other guys at the track went on spoke on her behalf, but the track owner or the person running the series has to be the one to step up and put a stop to it, and he wasn't willing to. So we still have issues out there, and we still need to get those men on board for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Yeah.
it's going to take a long time. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. But
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, I know you've been racing recently. Tell me where you've been and what you've been up to.
yeah, so on the legend car side of things, I recently have been racing in Vegas. I was just there last weekend. So
Mhm.
I've been racing the Silver State Winter Series. It's my third time now running this series. I won it the other two times that I have raced the series, but this time has been a little bit more challenging, especially now that I'm in the pro class. And it was my last weekend racing the Silver State Winter Series because I will be at Daytona. for the last week. And so I will not be able to make that one.
Yeah.
But, and besides that, in 2022, at the end of last year, I raced in New Hampshire for Road Course World Finals, and I finished third there. I raced at Hallett in October, which is in Oklahoma, and I finished second in points for the 2 days there. And so besides that, I've pretty much just been preparing for next year. We ran the MX5 Cup Shootout in November last year. And it's not a race, but it was, they did consider on-track times, but it was really just a combination of both our on-track and off-track capabilities. So they looked at a multitude of things. And I was lucky enough to be awarded with the Women's Initiative Scholarship to go towards this year in MX5 Cup. So
that's awesome. So what does that entail? Is that like a sponsorship, or what does that scholarship, what is that?
So the scholarship is worth $75,000. There is a lump sum amount of money, and then there's also partial part of the money that will be awarded in parts and tires and fuel and other things that help go towards next year's season.
So that's season. Well, yeah, it feels like we're still in last year because it's so new, but that's a huge help for your racing. I know it is. Absolutely. So in order for you to win that scholarship, can you tell me a little more detail about what they were looking at and maybe why you were chosen?
Yeah, so it was 2 days, and we raced, or not raced, but we were at Carolina Motorsports Park in South Carolina. And so the first day was raining, made things a little bit difficult. So I guess we did have to, they did test our abilities of being able to drive in the rain. But yeah, so we did one session the first day. And then the next day we did, I believe, 4 on-track sessions. And after each session, we would debrief with a coach from Mazda Motorsports, and they would help us look at data and compare our data with one of the coaches, one of their laps on Carolina Motorsports Park. And your ability to improve over the course of the 2 days was an important factor. Your fastest lap time was a factor. And then they also did your interview skills, just your overall charisma and personality. But yeah, those were basically the things that they looked at over the 2 days.
Well, then I can understand very well why you were awarded that, because you do have the all around, what they're looking for, I guess, in a driver. Not only are you talented on the track, but you speak well, you interview well, and you have a good personality. So I'm proud of you for that, Heather. I'm glad to hear that you won that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So for those who aren't maybe as familiar with the series that you're going to be in, do you want to explain like what the car's like and maybe some of the places where you're going to be racing?
Yeah, so the Idemitsu Mazda MX-5 Cup Series presented by BF Goodrich Tires is sanctioned by IMSA, and we run 7 weekends throughout the course of this year. One of them is with IndyCar. And so we'll be starting the year off at Daytona. We're also going to be racing at St. Pete, which is the weekend with IndyCar. We'll be racing at Road America with NASCAR, also going to Road Atlanta, Watkins Glen, Laguna Seca in California, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
VIR. And so racing at very incredible tracks that I'm very excited to be on. And so the MX-5 Cup car comes from Japan and goes straight to Fliss Performance in Florida. And they basically make it, turn the car from stock into an actual race car. And so it's just like a Mazda Miata, but, meant for racing and worth a whole lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's pretty much the overall with the series in the car.
Okay. So on race weekend, is it just one race that you're going to race? Do you ever have any double headers? What does that look like?
It's 2 races every weekend of the 7, so it's 14 races throughout the year.
Okay. And those tracks you mentioned they're all on my bucket list, the ones that at least I haven't been to yet. So I'm going to have to check that schedule out because I'd love to come and see you the weekend of the IndyCar, of course, the NASCAR weekend. I'm a big NASCAR fan. And so I'm going to have to check those out a little bit closer, Heather, and maybe try to get 2 for 1 when I come to the race. But that's a pretty exciting schedule, and it's a very exciting series when you listen and to where you're going to be racing. So what track out of all those is the one you're looking forward to the most, other than California? I get that because that's where you're from. But so we're going to say that's a given. We know you want to go there. But what other track are you most excited to go to?
It's a good question. I would say it's got to be Daytona. It's pretty pretty insane that I'm going to get the chance to race on Daytona, especially the fact that it's my first race.
Yeah.
First professional race will be on Daytona just at the end of this month. So we had the chance to test there a few weeks ago, and it was incredible. So much fun, and not what I expected at all with like the banking and everything, just how you feel in the car, like physically. But yeah, it was really amazing to go and test there, just as a fan, like watching this track for so long, so many races on this track, and being able to actually race there, my first professional series debut, is pretty insane.
It's going to be very memorable. And, there's a lot of wonderful tracks, but when you come down to it, there's nothing like Daytona. And
Mm-hmm.
for your first race, so do you practice on the simulator at all for that race?
Yeah, absolutely. Also in combination with watching GoPro footage. But yeah, there's also just aspects of the car that you can't really learn from simulators. So just also talking with people who are familiar with this car and the series, and trying to get as much help from them as possible. Constantly, consulting everyone on the new team and just being like, okay, how do I do this? Or just trying to learn as much as possible, because there's aspects of the car that I'm not used to, like ABS and power steering and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that affect you on track
Yeah.
in ways that I still am learning. So, yeah, I do some simulator work, but I'm also, asking many questions and watching a lot of GoPro footage to
Right.
try to learn as much as I can before Daytona.
Absolutely. So tell me about the team you're on. This is a new team, obviously, for you this year. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the team and what other drivers are on this team, and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very excited to be with Spark Performance this year. They're out of Alabama. Nathaniel Sparks runs the team. He won the championship in 2016, so he's very, very familiar with this series, been in it for a long time and knows the ins and outs of this car and the series. Gresham Wagner is a part of that team, and he is constantly doing well in this series. He won the championship in 2021. Grant West is a part of this series, and Alex Bashira is also on the team. So, yeah, that's pretty much the rundown of Spark.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm very excited.
So Heather, will there be other women racing in this series, or are you going to be the only gal again?
So, as far as I know, currently, Hannah Zellers is the only woman I know of to be running the full season with Hickson Motorsports.
Okay. All right. She's a familiar name.
Mm-hmm.
So, and do you know her? Have you met her yet?
I've not.
You've not. So
No.
it'll be nice, though, I think, for you to have another girl in the series, so you can maybe make a new friend and feel like there are, you're not just there with guys all the time, because after a while you need some girl time probably. So that sounds great. Now tell me, when you moved to North Carolina, how old were you, and how did that come about, and how did your parents deal with that?
Yeah, I moved to North Carolina when I was 18 to start my freshman year of college. And it was a bit of a culture shock to
Yeah.
go from the West Coast to the East Coast, pretty much not as far as possible, but pretty far.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I can't think of many similarities between California and North
No.
Carolina, to be
No.
honest. So it's been interesting. I have enjoyed, just getting out of just the bubble that I was living in, and learning a bunch of new things and opening myself up to new perspectives. So it's been a learning experience for sure. but but yeah, it was definitely a bit of a culture shock when I moved here at 18, for sure.
So what's the biggest difference that you can say between the two?
Hmm. Probably the weather
Uh-huh.
is really different.
Yeah.
North
Yeah.
Carolina has constantly changing weather. It's not, stagnant like California mostly is. California is normally around 70 or 80 degrees, whereas North
Hmm.
Carolina jumps between
Yeah.
90 degrees and 50 degrees in one day. So
Yeah. Or
it's
you could get a snow shower,
yeah,
and 2 hours later it's sunny and 60 and the snow's all gone. I mean,
yeah,
they
exactly.
have such, I mean, Michigan has a lot of crazy weather too, but I think the Carolinas and that part of the country, it fluctuates a lot more in a short amount of time, more so than maybe a lot of other places. And would you say that the lifestyle is more laid back maybe? Um, in my mind, I guess I would think that they're kind of southeast part of the country would be a more laid back lifestyle than California.
It's tough to say because I pretty much moved to another city, and cities
Yeah.
normally are not laid back. But I will say Charlotte, in comparison to San Francisco, is definitely more laid back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are two completely different cities for sure. And I have been to
Yeah.
several cities across the country, and Charlotte is one of a kind for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, it's yeah, I guess I would say North Carolina is more laid back. Yeah,
Yeah.
California is very got a million things going on all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Especially the bigger cities for sure. They
Yeah.
do. Yeah. So how were your parents? How did you decide to go to school there because of racing is hot there? That's kind of the hotbed of racing, or or what? And how did your parents feel about that? That's a long way to let your little girl move.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely picked UNC Charlotte because it's racing hub of the country, and my initial direction that I wanted to go in was NASCAR, so it was a no-brainer to go to Charlotte,
Hmm.
North Carolina. Um, but yeah, my parents, my mom initially wanted me very badly to stay in California and go to college in California. So that was, kind of hard for her. But my dad is like just he doesn't care. He's like, go for it.
Yeah. So are you an only child, or do you have siblings?
Yeah, I'm an only child.
Yeah, I kind of thought I remembered that, because that makes it even harder for mom to let go.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I have four children, and even at that, it was hard to let them see them move to Arizona when I live in Michigan. But I find that it's a wonderful place to visit, especially in the winter. So now I don't really mind so much.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So if you had some advice for a young girl who wanted to get started in racing, what would your advice be?
I mean, I guess I would just say that challenges and obstacles and um, people too are constantly going to be trying to hold you back. But you and only you are going to know what you truly want to do and what you think is right. And so I've had to, be realistic with myself many times and just say, is this, this is what I want to do, right? Like, and if it's just what I want to do, then I'm doing the right thing. And if we can make it as a family,
Mm-hmm.
realistically make it happen, then it's definitely the right decision for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that you know challenges and uh, things are going to constantly be trying to hold you back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you know what's right for you, then just
Yeah.
keep doing it.
Well, and so perseverance is one thing. Then I hear you saying is that um, you have to know what you want, and sometimes that's hard, especially the younger you are. Sometimes you think you know and you don't really, and so
Yeah.
being an adult is hard even when you're 21, but the more you think about it, the more you immerse yourself in something, and if you're involved in something that's your passion, that's the thing. So many people dread going to work on Monday morning, or they dread their life or whatever it might be, because they're not following their heart and they're not
Mhm.
following their passion. And I find that women and men that are involved in racing, sometimes they don't care about how nice of a car they drive, how nice of an apartment they live in, whether they eat ramen noodles or steak. It's more about my money goes into the racing because what means the most to them. And it's easy to figure out when you're talking to somebody. It doesn't take long for me to figure out if they're passionate about racing and growing and becoming to the next step. It's easy for me to figure that out because it shines through, and I see that in you, Heather. I see that this is your passion, and that's why you're following it. So tell me what you're when you're going to college, what are you studying? So what kind of a degree will you have? Is it something that will help you in motorsports or completely different?
Yeah, so I'm double majoring in finance and accounting. So business is definitely applicable to racing. It's
Hmm.
the number one reason I think why I picked a business major, is because I knew that it was going to help me tremendously in the racing world. Um, but I've also just always enjoyed math. And so I knew I wanted to go in, a direction that was somewhat related, where I could, also be doing things that I enjoy. But yeah, I knew that any business major was going to help me tremendously in the racing world, just having a good understanding of business fundamentals,
Yeah.
so that, whether it be related to the accounting of racing or contractual agreements or
Yeah.
just transactions that go on constantly. I
For
wanted
sure.
to know and be present and aware of everything going
Yeah.
on, so that I could take control of my own career.
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing about that is I don't care what business you're in. That's something that every business has to know. And so it's a good background to have for sure. So my last question for you, Heather, is how did you get the nickname The Heat?
yeah. So I got the nickname the Heat when I played softball. So not related to racing, but yeah, we. I think it was actually from my dad. He's the one that liked the nickname, and it just stuck.
Okay. Were you a pitcher?
No, I was second base and shortstop.
Okay. Okay. I'm thinking, you're throwing the heat, so you might
Yeah,
have been a pitcher for sure. Oh, well, that's interesting. And it's a good nickname for a race car driver, so I'm glad it stuck.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, Heather, what have I not asked you about that you'd like to share with our listeners about yourself, your racing career, anything at all? And then also share how they can follow you on social media.
Okay. Hmm. I don't know what you haven't asked me about, but
Okay.
um,
So how can the listeners follow your career, keep track of where you're going to be racing, all that kind of thing?
so my schedule for this year is on my website, heatherhadleyracing.com. But also a lot of other information is on there. And my socials are pretty much just Heather Hadley. And Facebook is Heather the Heat Hadley. So
Okay. So easy to find you, easy to follow up with what you're doing. I know I'm going to be doing that, and I'm definitely going to check out that schedule because I'm putting my schedule together for the summer, and I want to try to get to some places that I haven't been before, and you named off several of those. So I'm excited to maybe hit one of those races where I can watch you for sure. Heather, it's been such a joy to talk with you tonight. I appreciate you taking time out of, I know, a busy schedule between college and racing. And Daytona's your first race. And what weekend is that?
it's the 25th through the 27th. So actually, we're racing on Friday and I think qualifying on Thursday. So
Okay.
it's the same weekend as the Rolex 24.
Okay. All right. So we can catch that. And does that series, is that on streaming somewhere that we could listen to it?
Yeah, so all MX5 Cup races will be on IMSA TV,
Okay.
and they're also live streamed on racer.com.
Okay, very good. So we have no excuses why we shouldn't be watching and catching up and watching your first race in Daytona. So I know I'm going to be doing that for sure because I want to cheer you on even if it's from Kalamazoo and you can't hear me for sure. So, well, Heather, thank you again for being on. I appreciate that. I want to wish you all the luck in the world. I'm proud to see young gals who are passionate about motorsports who travel and move across the country to follow their dreams, and that's amazing, and I'm proud of you for that, and I know your parents are too. So I'll keep track of you, and if I can ever do anything to help you in any way, you know where to find me. And although Brett couldn't be on tonight, one thing we always tell our guests is, we're a racing family. We aren't related. Brett and I, we met through racing. We just became really good friends. And as you well know, your racing family is a whole nother family besides the ones you're born into. And so we always say, thank you for being with us and welcome to the family.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope to see you at the track this year.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make that happen for sure. So
Awesome.
thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So that was Heather, the Heat Hadley. She's an amazing young gal. I love, she's well spoken. She knows what she wants and she's going after it. And that's what you have to do. I don't care what kind of a career you're going after. That's what you've got to do. So um, I hopefully Brett will be with us in the next week or two. We've got some really great guests lined up. We're going to be doing not only the Wednesday show, but sometimes our guests are not able to be here on Wednesday at 7 Eastern time. So we're going to have some special shows, and we'll give you plenty of notice about those. Some people who have very busy schedules and have agreed to be on the podcast, but Wednesdays just don't work. And so we're going to come up with a name for our special edition uh, interviews that we're going to have, and they'll still be live. You'll still be able to get on and ask questions, but they may not always be on Wednesday. And then, of course, the magazine is still coming out, and the recorded podcast is still going strong. And so we're going to be ramping that up again as well. We have some other exciting things planned. Hopefully, we're going to have some events coming up at some of the tracks. And I'm excited about that because I always love meeting more people and meeting more women that are involved and love motorsports. So for tonight, I'm going to sign off from Phoenix, Arizona. Actually, I'm in Glendale, Arizona, which in another couple of weeks is going to be the home of the Super Bowl. So there's signs everywhere about the Super Bowl, which comes February. I want to say the second weekend in February, I think. But Anyway, that'll be kind of fun for Glendale. If you live here, not so much, but I'll be back in Kalamazoo, so it's okay with me. But hopefully everybody had a good holiday, a good new year. We're looking forward to a lot of fun and exciting things in 2023. We're always looking for suggestions for guests. So if you want to reach out to me, my email is iwmanation@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Women's Motorsports Network. So I think that's about all I have for tonight. I'll talk to you next week. Hopefully, Brett will be here. And everybody, have a great week.